Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
I will eat your ass!
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? It's Wednesday, it's hump day, it's midweek. We got stories. Let's dive in. Before I do, like and share the stream. Very important. Helps out. Helps us out very, very much. We need as much of that as you can do. Views, of course, terrible. And so, yeah, if you want to help us out, please do so. It's the best way. Like and share. All right, so look, we're going to talk about different things. We've got some stuff, election stuff from last night, of course. Very important. We got Tucker Carlson. We have a story. I want to talk about Jordan Peterson. It should be fun. Jordan Peterson. And then I'm going to make some pretty bad meat puns, because we have a story about the Trump family, specifically Kimberly Guilfoyle and Don Jr. hawking steaks. The stakes are very high, but it has a lot of people asking, where's the beef? All right. So anyway, that's just a taste of the meat puns. Yes, exactly.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
All right. Anyway, yes, Trump Steaks 2.0. Exactly. So anyway, we're gonna do that. And what again? Like and share the stream, and we'll dive in. Let's start out with some good news. Some positive news. It turns out yesterday, not too bad of a day. Oh, interesting. On Tuesday, voters in Oregon and Pennsylvania delivered a stunning rebuke to the Manchin wing of the Democratic Party, as well as gigantic super PACs. So let me break that down. In Pennsylvania, you had John Fetterman that crushed Conor Lamb. I was going to say sheared, but by a huge margin, even after Fetterman suffered a stroke on Friday and spent election day getting a pacemaker implanted. He's feeling pretty good now, recovering. And so that's good news. And, when it was done, he realized that he had won the election. Of course, he was expecting to win gigantic margin in the polls. And so that's great. Fetterman, I would say, pretty good, much better than Conor Lamb. And so, yeah, that's awesome. Now, you also had Summer Lee, a rising progressive, squeaking out a close victory against anti-labor attorney Steve Irwin. So that's good. In Oregon, you also had Kurt Schrader losing to Jamie McLeod Skinner, despite being outspent 10-1. Charles Booker winning his primary in Kentucky. He's going to take on Rand Paul. We'll see how that goes. These victories, fantastic. Very important. Because at the end of the day, you had big money and big endorsements that did not win, as well as, of course, proof that this centrism, this moderate Democrat mantra that you hear, we have to have moderate Democrats that can win in these places like Pennsylvania. No, it turns out progressives can win there too. So now, Ryan Grimm, The Intercept, kind of breaks down how much money was spent in these races. Let's go to Summer Lee. Now, her opponent, Irwin, was backed by a Republican super PAC. So, look, you shouldn't be surprised that Republican super PACs will now spend money in Democratic primaries. In fact, Bernie Sanders has called this out and says, hey, maybe we shouldn't have big Republican money interfering in Democratic primaries. But of course, nobody's going to listen to that. Nobody cares in the establishment, because guess what? It's all the same donor money, and it basically goes to all the politicians regardless of party. So that said, you had this Republican super PAC backing Mr. Irwin, and that was linked to AIPAC. Now, one of the PACs from AIPAC is called the United Democracy Project. And they poured more than $1 million into ads in Pennsylvania's 12th district. The bulk of that messaging, of course, were attack ads against Lee, though just over $100,000 went to materials supporting Irwin. In total, UDP spent more than $2.3 million in that race. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Now, Democratic Majority for Israel, you might be familiar with that PAC, spent heavily against Nina Turner and both of her races in Ohio. Well, they also spent heavily against Lee. However, unlike in the case of Nina Turner, Lee had some backup. In fact, you had the Working Families Party, Justice Democrats, J Street, which is in progressive Israel PAC, that had spent on Lee's behalf to the tune of around $1.7 million. So she had the cavalry this time. And again, as I point out, that cavalry did not exist on behalf of Nina Turner. So, I mean, that's incredibly unfortunate. They also used the same messaging against Lee that they used against Turner. For example, they called her not a Democrat, somebody who would go out and attack Biden's agenda, which, again, is absolutely ridiculous. In both cases, do you think that if a minimum wage increase, $15 minimum wage, right, or even an expansion of ACA subsidies, do you think if that came across the desk of Summer Lee or Nina Turner, that they would say no? No, that's ridiculous. Of course they would. No, they would sign it. And then they would, of course, say, okay, this is a good start, but how about we actually do more? Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So I love the whole, you're not a real Democrat messaging. And by the way, Summer Lee, and this is why there was so much DMFI money in this race, Summer Lee criticized Israel. And so, is pro-Palestinian. Again, that's another thing that Nina Turner had in common. She also supported the rights of Palestinian people to not get massacred and to not have illegal settlements and their houses stolen. So, now, again, I'm making these parallels because it is very interesting that they did not support Turner, but supported Lee. Again, I think both of them in Congress would be fantastic, but at least we do have one. So now, again, Lee also ran on policies like the new Green New Deal, Medicare for All, and is very pro-labor. Now, she prevailed. In fact, I want to give you her victory speech here. This was from last night after the results were given.
We got a lot of work to do.
All right, so look, she did say very correctly too, every vote mattered. It came down to, at one point, a 40 vote difference. So everyone who showed up, it did matter, and it mattered greatly. And now Pennsylvania, that district gets their first African-American female representative. So that does matter. And so representation matters, as does policy. And she's right on both of those. All right, so now that's Lee. Let's go on to Fetterman. So now Fetterman ran against Connor Lamb. Lamb actually ended up having the endorsement of every single establishment Democrat, high official and county organization in the state. Also, Joe Manchin. You would think that kind of would be the kiss of death, considering how unpopular Joe Manchin is across the country. Now, nonetheless, we had Lamb losing by a gigantic amount, nearly 30 points. So, look, he got crushed. Fetterman ran in a more populist policy. Lamb, of course. It's funny, I had a tweet that was responding to Connor Lamb from last year that blew up yesterday, where he was talking about, if you're looking for a socialist, I'm the wrong guy. And I said, well, look, they're going to call you a socialist no matter what. So you might actually want to do something to help the people instead of helping your donors. Well, look, Connor Lamb was owned by the donors. He was only going to serve those donors. Fetterman, I think he's going to do a lot better. So now, here's the thing. What was very interesting, getting back to the super PACs here, and the big money, DMFI and AIPAC actually did not spend against Fetterman in this race. Now, I thought that was very interesting. Now, there's a reason. David Dole correctly points out in his tweet, worth mentioning, Fetterman came out is extremely pro-Israel a month before the vote, meaning the same money that was spent against other progressives was not spent against him. So I think that is important to point out. Foreign policy is incredibly important. Fetterman being not great on the issue of Palestine, again, is not great, and it is important to note. At the same time, though, on other issues, especially domestic issues, there's no doubt he'll be better than Connor Lamb. And so I'll take it. I'll take the wins where I can, understanding that where he might be weak and might, and what, you know, we might be able to push him on that too. And so that's what's important. We can try to push him on that issue, and hopefully he can bend on that issue. If not, then at least we have him on other issues where he is a solidly decent progressive. So again, mixed bag, right? But generally better than Lamb. I'll take it. And look, again, he could be good on this issue. We just need to see all of these people in action. And I think that's important because their actions do matter. And so what we have to do is we have to judge them by their actions. Yeah, Harpagal points out, no one's perfect, but Fetterman, more perfect than Lamb. I would agree with that. And again, we're going to take the wins where we can, guys. They don't have to be perfect on the issues. And where they're not, we can absolutely try to push them the best that we can. All right. Now, that said, there's more. A super PAC funded by the pharmaceutical industry blew more than $1 million to protect another corporate Democrat. This is Blue Dog Coalition Chair Kurt Schrader, the Oregon Democrat who cast the deciding vote against drug pricing reform in the House and Energy Commerce Committee, and organized with Representative Josh Gottheimer to derail Biden's Build Back Better. So Jamie McLeod Skinner went after him on that, went after his corporate ties, referred to him as the Joe Manchin of the House. She then pointed out his corruption, and I think that was a very, very smart a campaign decision. Schrader had brought in about $2 million in outside super PAC support, half of it from the pharmaceutical industry, compared with McLeod Skinner's roughly $340,000 from two different PACs, Working Families Party and Indivisible. Adding in his own spending, Schrader actually outspent Jamie McLeod Skinner by about 10-1. God damn. So, look, he had that money. That was obvious. However, McLeod Skinner actually used his greatest strength, that money, against him by calling out the corruption, calling out corporate ties, linking his relationship with the pharmaceutical industry to his constant undermining of Biden's agenda. And I think that's really important because, look, most of you watching the show are likely very progressive and want to go further left than Biden's agenda. And we're kind of upset, a lot of us, understandably so, for the good reason that we can't even get the bare minimum that is Biden's agenda, much less things that we actually should already have, things like universal health care and free college. And so, look, Biden's agenda, though, when you ask mainstream, CNN, MSNBC Democrats, well, they all support Biden's agenda. And also, a lot of them tend to support the more progressive agenda, even, when they don't support progressive politicians. And I think that's very interesting. When you talk to people on policy, they generally support things like single payer. So now, what's interesting here about that is, again, if you run on, hey, this guy is super corrupt and he is bringing down Biden's agenda, and you can prove that, well, people are very, very unhappy with Biden right now. His poll numbers are incredibly low. Why? It's because he hasn't done anything. And a lot of it, again, it has to do with being blocked in Congress. The Republicans, of course, are not going to block anything good. That's by default. But then you've a cast of corporate Democrats that are also blocking Biden's agenda. People like Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, Josh Gottheimer, Kurt Schrader, the so-called moderates, the so-called blue dogs, and of course, Biden himself, not really pushing for his own agenda as hard as you would think someone who is interested in his own agenda would be pushing. And so there's that. But again, when it comes to rhetorically beating corporate Democrats, calling out that corruption and saying he is not actually being a good Democrat, I think that's effective messaging when it comes to grabbing those voters who were actually a little bit more aligned on policy, even if we're not aligned on tactics generally, right? And again, there's a lot of gaslighting. There's a lot of disinformation about progressive candidates and where they stand that gets spewed on corporate media, on cable news. So now, that said, Democrats want Biden to go and do things like prescription drug reform, allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs. That was very popular among all Americans, not just Democrats. You had the child tax credit, also incredibly popular. Childcare, paid leave. These are just basic things that we should have already had in this country that people do want. So it's corporate Democrats, again, like Manchin, Sinema, Gottheimer, Schrader, who ultimately tanked it. And so, look, if those two, by the way, weren't there, Manchin and Sinema in the Senate, well, somebody else would have stepped up and undermined Biden's agenda on behalf of the corporate donors. That's why we need more progressives in office. Now, there's more. A super PAC funded by a cryptocurrency fortune called Protect Our Future also spent $10 million to boost another corporate Democrat named Carrick Flynn. Flynn ended up losing to another progressive state representative, Andrew Salinas, who was endorsed by progressive groups as well as Elizabeth Warren. She'll be elected the first Latina to Congress from the state of Oregon. If she wins the general, she is expected to win that. Now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's House Majority PAC blew $1 million supporting the cryptocurrency funded candidate. So again, that's really good to see. Crypto bro and Nancy Pelosi getting together to both lose. Fun. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So now this whole thing ended up being a rout for these big money corporation or these big money PACs, corporate PACs, and so-called moderate Democrats, which are really, again, just corporate Democrats, and these blue dogs, right? It really shows the failure of centrism or centrist candidates in our electoral system. Nobody wants them anymore because guess what? They want people to actually do things, do good policy. Now, Ryan Grimm, he wrote this in The Intercept about it. Quote, "The stunning wins comes as the party debates who's to blame for Biden's sinking approval rating and increasingly dire forecasts of upcoming midterm losses. Party establishment figures have pointed the finger at the left. Ha ha. Of course they would, and I've told you about that numerous times, how they were going to blame the left, who is currently not in power and a minority of the party, who has been going along and trying to get Biden's agenda passed. They were going to blame them for the losses anyway, or potential losses. They point the finger at the left, Grimm writes, for making unreasonable demands couched in slogans like defund the police that turn off voters." So this is James Carville right there, and others talking about that. I think maybe Hakeem Jeffries has talked about the same thing. However, the progressive wing has counted that Biden's popularity is sunk as centrist Democrats have murdered his agenda while the left has fought to enact it. That's actually true. Centrists have tried to murder Biden's agenda, and very successfully so. No reconciliation bill. You need 51 votes for a reconciliation bill to pass a Republican filibuster. Couldn't get Manchin and Sinema on board. And they wouldn't do anything to get Manchin and Sinema on board. Manchin, by the way, so let's start with Sinema. Sinema is incredibly corrupt. She's taken so much money from the pharmaceutical industry. Why don't you call that out? Why don't you talk about that? Oh, right, because a lot of Democrats take money from the pharmaceutical industry in donations and do everything the pharmaceutical industry says. Then you have Joe Manchin, who, he's a literal coal baron. His son owns a coal company that he had founded in I think it was the 80s and the 90s. And then his daughter also ran a company, Mylan Pharmaceuticals, who jacked up the price of the EpiPen after colluding with Pfizer to make sure that they don't come up with a competing generic version that would lower the price, and they shared the profits. Literal collusion and trying to corner the market to make a monopoly so that these companies could make tons of money gouging the average person for the EpiPen. Just absolutely disgusting. Now, did any of the Democrats trying to pressure Manchin, did they bring that up? Joe Biden say, hey, we heard some things, very disturbing things about some collusion, price fixing. Why don't we look into that? Or, we might not look into that. We might turn our head if you decide to, go with our agenda, allow our agenda to pass. But they didn't do that. So now Tuesday's results, going back to Grimm, suggested Democratic voters, at least those in Pennsylvania and Oregon, would prefer the Democrats do more than rather than less, delivering a stinging rebuke to Kyrsten Sinema, Manchin wing of the party. Next week, voters in Texas will cast ballots in a number of runoffs that pit progressives against super-backed centrist Democrats. That's, of course, Jessica Cisneros is one of the big ones versus Henry Cuellar. Henry Cuellar, again, one of the most corrupt corporate Democrats, takes massive amounts of money from oil and gas, had some shady connections with Azerbaijani oil interests and is under investigation by the FBI. Yeah. So, that race is going to happen. And we're hoping Jessica Cisneros can pull out that win. Now, look, this is great. These wins against this money. And I understand that it's, we still lost some races last night too. But as progressives, that's to be expected. Because understand that we are outgunned massively, both by money, media, and of course, endorsements. All of them do matter to some extent with the voters, especially when it comes to messaging, getting out the messaging. So look, every win's important. We're the underdogs. We got to understand that. And as stinging as the defeat of Nina Turner was, that was one battle out of many, many others that need to be waged. And yes, it is a long slog to try to get people on the inside. By the way, the inside strategy isn't the only strategy. It's only part of the strategy. It is important to have people on the inside because they're the ones that are actually going to be casting the votes for things. So you got to have that. But you also got to have that massive pressure on the outside. And that means organizing your community, organizing your workplace, getting together to put pressure on the outside of the system itself in order to affect change. And to get the people that are on the inside to actually vote, to feel enough pressure, to make enough noise, enough good trouble to actually, make the people on the inside cast the votes in the ways that you want. So, all right. Anyway, let's go to Madison Cawthorn. Please make a short clip of this. I want to try to get people to donate. Oh, that's very sweet of you. I'll see what I can do. All right. Let's go Madison Cawthorn. That's fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Madison Cawthorn. Down goes Madison. That's right. Madison Cawthorn has been defeated in a Republican primary. So gone. That's right. Shortly before midnight, the Associated Press had called the race between him and Senator Chuck Edwards. Now, Edwards garnered more than 33% of the vote. Cawthorn got under 32%. So he conceded the election just prior, because he saw the writing on the wall. He knew that the Republican establishment, they had the knives out for him, and there was no way. There was no way he was going to win, even with the last-minute Trump endorsement, which I thought was pretty interesting. So now, I'm going to give you some video here. He was being asked about that Republican establishment attack against him. Here's what he said.
Congressman, there have been several photos and videos of you circulating online, on social media recently. What can you say to those constituents who maybe have lost some confidence in you and are looking for some other kind of leadership?
You know what, I'll tell you, there's been a coordinated strike carried out by really kind of the old establishment wing of our party. And it's really something that I think it's a loser's mentality. They realize the direction the country's going in, the direction that the population's going in. And if they want to be able to pay off people from my past and try and bring up old pictures or things that happened years and years ago, I feel free to let them do that. I think the American people will see through.
Oh, the American people will see right through that, except they didn't. At least not your voters. So look, when it comes down to it, though, the Republican establishment effectively obliterated Cawthorn. They used their power, and it is significant, to destroy him. And look, I think a lot of that is because he embarrassed the establishment by revealing cocaine and sex parties. We know it. It's got to be. I mean, they didn't start really going after him until that. So I absolutely believe it. It's the Republican Party, after all. Hypocrisy is kind of their thing. Now, look, there was also scandal after scandal that gets referenced. The alleged insider trading. They don't really care. Bringing guns to an airport. Again, they don't really care. Driving on a revoked license twice. They don't care. Come on, you can break the law as much as you want as a Republican. You just can't give away their secrets. So look, Madison, very, very bad boy. He's a very bad boy. But honestly, again, I don't think that any of those had anything to do with the Republican establishment using that drip, drip, drip campaign, to crush him. No, I think this is very important to point out because not a lot of people are. The Republican establishment won because they did gay panic. Honestly, that's what happened. Again, you had that video that showed whatever was going on with his friend or cousin or aide or whatever, humping his face. Again, you saw it. I really don't want to recreate it in your brain. Okay. There's other video of him, of somebody grabbing his crotch. You had the pictures of Cawthorn wearing women's lingerie, all that stuff, right? So now I don't really care about any of that stuff. That's a little weird. But again, I personally don't care. Now, the Republicans, however, they had that in their back pocket. And I think that's really interesting because before he caused trouble for the Republican establishment, you don't think they had that opposition research sitting in their back pocket waiting? Now, if they do that for Cawthorn, what kind of opposition research do you think that they have on other Republicans? I mean, I always do say they tend to vote in lockstep. Maybe that's why. What kind of dirt? What kind of dirt does the establishment have on other members of Congress? I think that's really an interesting question. And look, again, a lot of this is based on homophobia. That's what I get here. Look, I believe that even if Cawthorn isn't gay, I don't know if he is or not, the perception of him being gay is unacceptable for a right-wing electorate. I think that was enough to turn him off to a good chunk of potential voters in his area. And again, this is not the first time a right-wing politician has been busted in a gay scandal and lost his job. Remember Larry Craig? Wide stance in the public bathroom. Again, I don't care. Do your thing, right? Do your thing. But like, for Republicans, no, they didn't like it. No, don't do your thing. Don't you dare do your thing. Representative Phil Hinkle, another Republican who, by the way, voted for a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage, got busted getting an 18-year-old man that he met on Craigslist into his hotel room. When the young man backed out, Hinkle tried to pay him off and then refused to admit that he was gay. Quote, "I don't know what was going through my mind. I don't know why I did what I did." It's probably had something to do, with wanting a little D. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Look, another person, North Carolina's Steve Wiles, literal drag queen. He, in fact, used to perform as Miss Mona Sinclair at a drag club in Winston-Salem. Also happened to be a promoter for the 2011 Miss Gay America pageant. Well, that sounds lovely. I don't see a problem with that. But again, in the Republican Party, they hate that. In fact, the same guy, by the way, campaigned to ban same-sex marriage in North Carolina. So that's not fine. What you see is a pattern in the Republican Party where you have outwardly anti-gay men end up getting a little D on the side. Just saying. Now, again, as progressives, we do not care. I do not care. This would not be a scandal on the left because we don't care. We support gay and trans people. We support drag queens. Do you boo have a fun time? I don't really care. But on the right, they're still using this because they say they claim to be more moral than everyone else. Laugh along with me, right? No, they still use this as a cudgel, and they use this, even the appearance of having a gay relationship, against Madison Cawthorn. And again, Madison Cawthorn, not defending the guy, he's a horrible person. Again, hypocrisy is kind of baked into being a current Republican. So, but now, that said, anybody who thinks that the right wing is not going to clamp down on same-sex marriage or rights to same-sex marriage issue, painfully naive. Painfully naive. The Supreme Court right now is ready to gut 50 years of reproductive rights. Once they're done with that, you don't think they're going to go after Obergefell? Try to go after gay marriage? Of course they are. Of course they are. The right wing at its very core is deeply anti-gay. So you have to realize that while Madison Cawthorn losing is fantastic, again, I think it was a horrible person, not just part of the insurrection caucus, horrible things, says horrible things, does horrible things, would vote for horrible things. Him losing is a result of how hateful the right wing is. So his replacement, by the way, I don't think it's going to be any better on those issues. No, of course not. No, the only thing is his replacement is going to be a standard establishment Republican who will continue to vote in lockstep with the rest of the party. So if you think that you're going to get an improvement here by replacing Cawthorn, no, it's going to be the same. If not worse, we'll have to see. But, regardless of that, even though I had to bring it down a bit, let's bring it back up and just, thank goodness Madison's gone. I guess he can go, play with his
tallywhacker
by himself. Okay. Let's go to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson appears to be a little bit confused about the great replacement theory espoused by white nationalists and, of course, himself. And most recently, the Buffalo shooter. I'm going to show you a video here from one of his recent shows. Take a look.
You've heard a lot about the great replacement theory recently. It's everywhere in the last 2 days, and we're still not sure exactly what it is. Here's what we do know for a fact. There is a strong political component to the Democratic Party's immigration policy. We're not guessing this. We know this, and we know it because they have said so. They've said it again and again and again. They've written books on it, and monographs, and magazine articles. They've bragged about it endlessly. They talk about it on cable news constantly. And they say out loud, we are doing this because it helps us to win elections. That's not something that's said once. It's something they've gloated about again and again and again. And we think that's wrong. The Democratic Party has decided then, rather than convince you, people who are born here, that their policies are helping you and making the country better and stronger, they will change the electorate. Again, they say that. We're not guessing. But the funniest part is they may be wrong. actually, judging by recent polling. It turns out your average Salvadoran landscaper has politics that are a lot closer to Donald Trump's than they are to Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. So their basic calculation may be completely wrong. But that's not even the point. It has nothing to do with who we're letting in. It has something to do with race and ethnicity. It has to do with two things. One, the purpose of the U.S. government is to serve American citizens, period. And two, you should never craft any federal, which is to say nationwide policy, in order to help a specific political party. That is by itself, in isolation, immoral. It doesn't matter what the policy is. And that's exactly what they're doing.
All right. So, look, there's a lot here. Let's just go here to what he said at the beginning. Oh, we don't know what great replacement theory is. Yeah, you do. You literally talk about it all the time on your show. In fact, I'm going to show you different videos of him talking about white replacement or the great replacement.
Of course, you're not working to import as many new citizens as we can into the United States to replace all the disobedient ones who didn't vote for us.
In other words, you're being replaced, and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up. The great replacement theory, it's a lie, they yell. George Soros has nothing to do with that. Stop talking. They said we were espousing something called the great replacement theory, a well-known racist fantasy. The great replacement. They acknowledge that it's real, and they love it. This policy is called the great replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries. The great replacement plan is working. Now, I know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world.
Oh, weird. It looks like you know exactly what it is. You've been talking about it for quite some time. But you know what? We're not exactly sure what it is. I haven't really heard too much about it. No, really? Oh, okay. So now look, he also, in the segment, I didn't show you that part, but he cites a bunch of Democrats basically saying things like, immigration, good. Diversity, good. Yes. In fact, that's backed up by actual facts. Look, you have lots of studies that show that immigration is a good thing for the country. It's a positive thing for not only population growth, obviously, but for the economy. Immigrants contribute greatly to U.S. economy, and that's despite one of Trump's rules, the public charge rule. So, look, lots of studies, lots of data on how immigration is actually a benefit to our nation. Now, however, for certain people, for Tucker's audience, well, they would only believe it's bad that white people became a minority because, well, why? I mean, that's the question, right? Why would they be afraid of becoming a minority? Could it be because they're afraid that if they become minorities, then they would be treated the same way that they treat minorities? Could it be? It seems like it. I mean, really, it's all fear-based. They're afraid of people that look different. And by the way, if you do think that the problem is that Democrats will be benefiting electorally with immigrants, as Tucker Carlson also goes on to claim, like, oh, you know what? They're doing this for political purposes so that they can win more elections. Well, there's nothing stopping you, Tucker. There's nothing stopping the Republican Party from changing their party platform to be more friendly to immigrants. I mean, to appeal to them. And it's not like you have to do anything special. Like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give them houses, free houses and cars. Well, nobody's doing that currently. The Democrats aren't doing that. The Republicans obviously wouldn't do that. And that's not a realistic policy proposal. No, what you could do, simply put, is do a bipartisan pathway to citizenship. A News Nation poll conducted earlier this year found that 70% of respondents support something like that. A pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. Numerous bipartisan bills have been proposed, and then guess what? Shot down. because the Republicans don't want to vote for it. And I don't understand the automatic assumption that by Republicans, that immigrants will vote for Democrats. I mean, it tells me that they know the reason why immigrants, if given the chance to vote, would vote for Democrats and not for Republicans. And it comes down to Republicans treat immigrants like crap and hate them because they're brown. It's racism. We have racist Republicans pushing racist rhetoric against immigrants so they can get racist voters to keep them in power. That's what it is. The whole party, the Republican Party, runs on white grievance politics. It's a continuation of the Southern strategy. They have double, triple, quadrupled down on getting white people, scaring the crap out of white people who are ignorant and, yes, racist, and said, don't worry, we're the party of white people. And they've even gone so far as to hire people who are not white to do white propaganda for them. There's no shortage of people willing to sell out the Candace Owenses of the world to spread a message that is pro-white supremacy. That's what they do. That's what they do. And by the way, look, here's the other thing. Again, we know they don't like brown people, right? They don't like black people, and they believe in insane things like white genocide. Again, not a real thing. And by the way, also another not real thing is race. Doesn't actually exist. It's a made-up concept that's actually used traditionally to divide people, and that actually allowed for one group of people to do heinous things to other groups of people. Again, you can go back to slavery. That's the justification. Oh, these people are part of a different race that are less intelligent. And so we're going to order them around. We're going to make them into our literal slaves. And we're going to use this bullshit thing that we made up to exert our power over them. That's the reality of the situation. Now, the other thing is Republicans are tribal, right? Their tribe is based on outward appearances, right? So, dark skin, well, you're not part of my tribe. If you're a black person, you're not part of my tribe. If you look like me, you are part of my tribe. Unless you go against the tribe's mantra, of course. So white progressives, obviously not part of the tribe. And if you're not part of my tribe, you're the competition, you're the enemy, and we're going to fight you. But the thing is, we're all human beings. And so, look, unfortunately, you have this tribalism here that is a mainstay in Republican politics, right-wing politics. And so that's why they're not going to change their platform to be more open to others. Because of that tribalism, because of that white grievance politics works really, really well. And now, let's also be fair. Right-wingers aren't the only ones who use racial politics. You do have some Democrats that will weaponize racial issues. And you see that more often aimed at progressives than anyone else. Like if you challenge, for example, a woman of color that happens to be a part of the Democratic establishment, well, I mean, the biggest charge that goes around is you're racist for challenging this woman of color or this person of color, or criticizing maybe the corruption or the donations or the votes of certain black members of Congress. And again, it also extends to misogyny as well. If you criticize a woman for, once again, doing votes that don't represent their constituents or more represent corporate donors, well, then if you criticize her for that, you must be a misogynist. And we saw that, of course, during the 2016 race, and we do see that in local progressive races as well across the country. And so that does happen. That does happen. Now, that said, on the right wing, that kind of racial politics has deadly consequences. The Buffalo shooter, for example, in his manifesto, admitted that, the shooting was, of course, based on race. that guy focused in his manifesto on mainly hating black people. And I think that's really interesting because his manifesto was filled with racist memes about African Americans. Now, a lot of people talk about how he was motivated by white replacement, and certainly that is part of the motivation. But when you read into it more, it's actually just straight up racism. An archive of his posts on Discord, for example, where he posted a lot of this stuff for over the past 6 months before the shooting, barely even mentioned immigration at all, which I think is interesting. Instead, he went after black people, attacked black people, incessantly used the N-word. In search of archived posts beginning in 2021, their word immigrant actually only appears about 12 times. Replacement 18, so certainly a factor. Replacer 22 times, but blacks and the N-word each appear 100 times. So massively racist. He also, when he had perpetrated the shooting, when he was in the planning stages, he had searched the zip code for the largest black population close to where he lives, drove 200 miles to Tops, the grocery store, in order to kill as many black people as possible. He even wrote in his manifesto, he said, blacks are the most privileged race in the U.S. and many Western countries, but yet they say they're the most oppressed. What other race is given trillions of dollars of white taxpayer money to succeed, yet fails and asks for more? What other race actively destroys their communities like they do? It's kind of starting to feel like this wasn't exactly about immigration after all, but just plain old racism. And yes, as some of you point out, he did plan on killing more, and he had very, very detailed plans on this. And so, look, obviously, it's also important to point out that this person had lifted a bunch of different things from different people's manifestos, word for word, even copying Tucker Carlson word for word, sometimes changing words here and there. And by the way, these are not savvy people, obviously. If you're a racist, you're already kind of a dumbass to begin with. As a general rule, racism is basically the hallmark of a very small, underdeveloped mind. But he has taken all these different things from different manifestos, lifted it to put into his own rambling, nonsense justification, which again is not even he can't justify something like this. But anyway, yes, he clearly, though, motivated by the far right. The guy wasn't bored. No, he was a straight up racist, radicalized online by rhetoric that you would hear not only from the far right, but also echoed by people like Tucker Carlson. And by the way, who talked this way about African Americans, as well as immigrants. Again, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson railed against Black Lives Matter and referred to them as a terrorist organization. And you see that rhetoric all over the right wing. I see it in comment sections all the time, even in my own videos, that are like, oh, but what about BLM? Now, Black Lives Matter burning down entire cities. Terrorists. Ugh. But understand that it's that kind of mindset that inspires, and rhetoric that inspires these acts of violence. So getting back to what Tucker was saying, this is not coming from the left. That's absurd. No, it's coming from the right. It's coming from the far right, and it's coming from an incredibly fearful, violent minority who have been, of course, lied to, manipulated by right-wing media figures, message boards, and of course their own hatreds in their whole heart, in their own hearts, to do these kinds of things, to think these kinds of things. And there are people in power, of course, will use that to stay in there and to stay relevant and to stay in power. And unfortunately, it's the same kind of pattern that we have seen all throughout history that is playing out today. This racial-based hatred and violence. Okay. Moving on. have fun with some Jordan Peterson. Let's lighten it up. It's pretty heavy today. Heavy show or heavy segment, but otherwise fairly positive. So let's have some fun with Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson, our own Kermit the Frog. All right. Jordan Peterson has decided to cut back on his usage of social media after getting roasted over a tweet mocking a plus-sized model. Now, recently, Yumi Nu was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And it turns out that Peterson just wasn't into it. Okay, but unlike normal people who might not find her attractive, it's totally fine if she's not your cup of tea. As again, everybody has their preferences, right? Well, instead of doing what a normal person would do and just kind of scroll past with, whatever, he decided to say something shitty. Here's what he said. Not beautiful. No amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Authoritarian tolerance? What? What are you talking about? If you're not into her, Jordan, it's fine. Move on. Maybe he is really, really onto her. Or into her. I don't know. But again, scroll past. Get on with your life. For somebody who talks about the rules for life, he apparently ignored one of the most simplest rules that you have. If you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. Move on. You don't have to comment. But you did. And when you do that, by the way, you do open yourself up to criticism. And he did get it in spades. In fact, I want to read a couple of responses to this. Starting with Anna Kasparian, saying, I'm Jordan Peterson, and I demand to be the biggest boob and ass in the room. Forrest Miller says, I need all of my Twitter followers to know that I just saw a plus-size model in Sports Illustrated, and I'm definitely offended and not horny at all. Please know that. I'm very desperate to tell you that I am not horny. I am very not horny right now. Hassan Piker tweeted a picture of Peterson saying, sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Another one, Sana Saeed says, honestly, this took a lot of confidence to tweet considering your face. I appreciate that. Now, look, anybody who's seen Jordan Peterson, sometimes that guy, I kind of feel bad for him. He's had some issues with taking benzos and, not cleaning his room. And of course, there's the constant crying every time he gets into a conversation. Again, I don't have any problem with anybody expressing their own emotions, of course. But just the constant crying about weirdo things. I don't know. It's very strange. Another user posted a tweet from Peterson asking, why do so few women watch my channel? 91% of my viewers are male. I don't understand. Why do no women watch me on YouTube? I mean, this might explain why. Just saying. Oh yeah, the all meat diet. Wow. Again, I don't have any problem with eating meat, but you're gonna do the all meat diet? That's gotta not be very healthy. And yeah, by the way, some of his followers are like, we're just pointing out how Yumi Nu is not having a very healthy lifestyle. Neither was your boy. Come get your boy. Wow. And again, the dunks went on and on. even from, again, some of his own followers, which I think is interesting. One of them says, I'm a huge fan of yours, and I'm always getting my young adult sons and daughter to watch your videos. But I have to disagree. Beauty is subjective. You could be older or heavier and still be beautiful. Is it standard beauty? No. I mean, when you're looking about, talking about like beauty industry standards, look, I don't want to go into beauty industry standards because I'll probably rant and rave about how beauty standards in you know, Hollywood and in the industry are pretty horrible and not reality. I mean, generally, women come in all different shapes and sizes. They're not all supposed to be just one type. You know? Again, all different types, all different shapes, sizes, and you know, all of them, again, beautiful to different people. Nothing wrong with that. And again, everybody is allowed to have a preference too. Nobody's trying to be authoritarian, except, ironically, for Jordan Peterson, who says, no, this is not my standard of beauty, and therefore it shouldn't be anyone's standard of beauty. Well, who's being authoritarian, dude? Another one. I love your talks, but this comment is beyond disappointing. You may not even know how many levels this is disturbing. Try interviewing more young women on your podcast. I think that'd be a great idea. You've got a lot to learn. Until then, stop criticizing women's bodies. I absolutely agree. All right, so now, again, you don't have to find someone attractive. Nobody's forcing you. Everybody has their own body types. Everybody has their own preferences. We should, you know what? Normalize being normal. How about that? I mean, and by the way, this is also a good example of the free market, right? I mean, here you have Sports Illustrated. That's not exactly a liberal publication. They're Sports Illustrated. You know, the swimsuit people. They made the decision probably based on, you know, sales and things like that, and how different beauty standards, and by the way, beauty standards all throughout history have evolved and changed. You know, they made this decision probably because they thought, we're going to sell some magazines. That's capitalism, baby. That's a free market. Now, again, I don't know what part of this backlash made Jordan Peterson want to leave. But he's leaving. And so here's what he wrote in a series of tweets. Now, I recently stopped accessing Twitter for 3 weeks as an experiment. I had some of my staff post video links. It was a genuine relief. I started to read and write more. I started using it again a few days ago, and I would say that my life got worse again almost instantly. The endless flood of vicious insults is really not something that can be experienced anywhere else. He's right about that, by the way. I like to follow the people I know, but I think the incentive structure of the platform makes it intrinsically and dangerously insane. I don't think those are bad points, actually. Look, Twitter, social media is a dumpster fire. But here's the thing about that. Bro, you did the vicious insult. You openly called a woman that you were not attracted to ugly. Who's being vicious here? Does Jordan Peterson not understand irony? Because that right there, irony. No, apparently not. You know what boggles my mind? These guys, that guy's considered an intellectual on the right. Boggles the mind. Okay. We need more Peterson stories just for the most. I have, you know what? I have noticed the lack of Jordan Peterson stories on my channel. I guess I'm thinking like, I don't know, is he that big of a figure? Is he somebody that I really should be, spending my time talking about? But in reality, I'm actually having a lot of fun dunking on Jordan Peterson. I should do more of that. I just unfortunately won't have his tweets. But I could do the videos. Oh, fun story of the day. Let's do more. Last story. Good news if you're into mediocre meat. It appears that Trump Steaks is back, kind of. Now, recently, Kimberly Guilfoyle, the former advisor to President Donald Trump and wife of Don Jr., is hawking steaks for a meat delivery service who is having a few complaints. In fact, so many complaints, they ended up getting their Better Business Bureau accreditation yanked. The company is actually called Good Ranchers, and they are getting butchered in their reviews. According to a review of its website by Salon, Good Ranchers mail order beef bundles, which are very expensive apparently, they begin with $179 Ranchers Classic and top out at the $1,299 Prepper Kit, which includes 17 pounds of bone-in steaks, yummy, 15 pounds of boneless steaks, 15 pounds of signature ground beef, and 40 pounds of various chicken breasts. Wow. I mean, the prepper, that's amazing. How are you supposed to keep that meat fresh for that long? I mean, okay, anyway. Now, Guilfoyle did a recent commercial about this, right? In it, she claimed that 85% of the meat that they sell in stores today is not even from the United States. No, that's not true, actually. And if it was, I kind of wish that it was. Because foreign meat, especially from the EU, would actually be higher quality than what we sell here. According to the Department of Agriculture, only 8 to 12% of the beef sold in the United States comes from foreign sources. Now, Guilfoyle might be talking about grass-fed beef, as Salon notes, of which 75 to 80% is imported, though it is often processed in the United States. So, okay, fair enough. I mean, look, wow. We're talking about meat, folks. We're talking about meat. So a lot of people who have received their meat, not exactly happy about it. In fact, a lot of the verified reviews, while they are good on the website and other places, reviews elsewhere, not good. In fact, allegations from customers claim that they paid hundreds of dollars for beef that just didn't even show up. Where's the beef? Where's the beef? It's gone. It disappeared. Never even showed up. In fact, one customer identified as Lisa G wrote on the Better Business Bureau profile for the company, I restarted my subscription, ordering a $139 box. I got an email last night announcing it had come. We were home at 9:28 when the email came in and went straight to the front porch. There was no box. And we've received nothing. Oh, that's okay. It's their new beefless beef. Meatless meat. It's there, but it's not. Look, it's again, anything that the Trumps touch is automatically a scam. Of course it is. Now, Lisa G said she attempted to contact the company, but did not receive a response. She said, well, my next move is to stop payment through my bank or have them pursue the company for restitution. Is that, well, look, better hurry before that company declares bankruptcy. A customer named Karen W. also described a similar experience, saying, I've been trying to contact you via email for the past 3 days. My order/shipment went to another state, and I would like to have this corrected. Please respond to my emails. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it just flew away. Flew somewhere else. It's gone. In the string of 1-star reviews, and this is not just about, by the way, disappearing meat. It's also people complaining that the meat that they received was pretty subpar. In fact, in a string of 1-star reviews on the Better Business Bureau profile of good ranchers, apparently bad ranchers, customers complained about issues such as the quality of the beef and difficulties contacting customer service. 5 patrons used either the phrase rip off or ripped off. I paid $203 for beef and got ripped off. Con man selling the steaks. Well, what do you expect? It's promoted by Trump, Donald Trump Jr. By the way, there's also sweepstakes to meet people like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. That's got to give away that it's an obvious scam. I mean, come on. You're going to trust anything that comes anywhere near these grifters, the con artists. But Jeff M. continued by saying, they told me there were 20 steaks in a box and there were just 10. Fillets were 2 ounces and filled with fat and chewy and filled with veins. Could not eat any of the fillets and used for pulled beef sandwiches. Totally deceived. Would never buy these again. $203 is a lot of money. That string of terrible reviews. Oh, this is also another one here. Kirsten M. wrote, don't waste your money. Poor quality of meat. Good sales pitch, though. I would love to send this meat back. I was ripped off. That terrible review, the many terrible reviews, led the board of directors, the Better Business Bureau, to revoke Good Ranchers accreditation December 2nd, 2021, by the way. So it's been for quite some time. Due to the failure by the business to adhere to the Better Business Bureau requirement that accredited businesses meet and abide by several standards. They've had so long to fix those, and they still haven't. Wow. They included addressing disputes forwarded by the Better Business Bureau quickly and in good faith, approaching all marketplace transactions and commitments with integrity, and providing responses to complaints that are professional and explain why any relief sought by the company cannot or should not be granted. All this time, couldn't fix it. Didn't want to fix it because they got their money. Their expensive, low-quality meat. I guess it looks like the promise of high-quality meat just ended up being nothing more than a load of bull. Sad. Baby. All right. Oh, so many good puns here from you all. AOC stole the real beef. Let's see. Pump and dump. Buy from a con man, expect not to be conned. W2F. Yep. Let's see. Invisible Burger. The F-35. Y'all, the F-35 comment is gold. What? It's just using F-35 cloaking technology. You know, to get there safe. Meat is lower quality in some countries. That's true. That's why I said European. they generally have higher standards of meat or for meat in Europe. The bad meat will not replace us. Donald Trump Truth Twitter account suspended as Liz Harrington quits sites. Oh, okay. Fun. Maybe we'll talk about that. Pilfered pork, phantom flanks. Y'all, I think the bankruptcy process is already underway. Fair enough. Porch Pirates, Concealed Cow. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. Beef be gone. Best audience in the world. It's true. All right. That's all I got for y'all today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Really, really appreciate it. Dango Bango, thank you for the super chat. Lamb chops, that's what's for dinner. True. Dystopian Dragon says, content of your character. Mr. Shadow says, I profited handsomely of the well-deserved loss of Cawthorn on Predict It and had to share the winnings. Give it a good fight. Well, thank you, Mr. Shadow. Appreciate that. And Gabby Mathis says, I am so sick of Fox and Tucker. Unfortunately, we have to talk about that because Tucker Carlson is the highest rated cable news host on television. I mean, that's unfortunate. In this country, somebody like Tucker Carlson has the highest rated cable news television show. This fact makes me very sad. Yes, it's true. It's true. It's incredibly sad. And you got to fight against it. You got to fight against them and debunk the bullshit that's blasted from his airwaves every single night. Jeff should do call-in guest spots as Jordan Peterson on different shows. I'm Dr. Jordan Peterson. I have eaten way too much meat. I ordered some from, oh God, from Good Ranchers. It didn't, my meat had disappeared. It never showed up. I had to go somewhere else for my all-meat diet. Oh God. All right, I had too much fun with this story. I need to go now for things. I gotta get some things done. But all right, anyway, thank you all. Oh, by the way, on Twitch, here, Chipperdoodle and PA, thank you for resubbing for a month of tier 1. Appreciate that. 18 months. Hey. All right, Jeff, let's see. That's not a horrible impression. That's pretty good. Thank you. Pillow Guy is better. I do a decent Pillow Guy as well. So I gotta work on it. It takes time. It takes time. Jeff Jordan made me turn my head. Yes, it's true. It's like half Jordan Peterson, Kermit the Frog / Yoda. It's great. All right. Too much fun. Thank you all again. Love you. Appreciate you all. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. By the way, Friday we're gonna have a guest host hanging out with me. So that's gonna be a really fun. We're gonna give up the details of who it is tomorrow at the end of the show, but it's gonna be a fun show on Friday with our new guest host for the day. Really, really excited to bring him on. That's already too much information. So anyway, we'll have that to look forward to. All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.
I will eat your ass.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass keyword.
It's not a salami sandwich. It's a viable baby in the womb.
don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.